Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 547. Happy Friday. Oh my goodness. My weekend plans, I think I'm going to watch that show Quarterback on Netflix. I know they follow Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota. And I'm not sure what to expect, but I'm going to watch it. I'm hoping it sucks me in and it's like really good. I'd love a show to binge and relax this weekend. And assuming it's really good, we're going to cover it on Monday. I haven't decided yet if I want to. And I've got a couple ideas how I could cover it. And maybe I'll do multiple things. But assuming it's as good as I hope it is, it'll be a central topic of the show. It would be really disappointing if it's just kind of a dud and not interesting. But I am hoping that my Sunday this week, instead of watching NFL football because it's still July, I am hoping that show Quarterback really sucks me in and it's really, really a focal point of my weekend. I want to start today by talking about the Buffalo Bills, a team that has been kind of a central topic of the show, at least was yesterday on episode 546. I want to revisit them and talk about what I think could end up being a solution for the Buffalo Bills. So, first of all, in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills have hit a ceiling. They're a really good team that cannot seem to get any farther on a playoff run. They are not able to win a Super Bowl. And they've got a really young, awesome quarterback, Josh Allen, that I think if he retires and doesn't win a Super Bowl, that's a big disappointment. He's a quarterback capable, he's really dang good, and he needs a really good coach. The head coach in Buffalo is Sean McDermott, an awesome man, a really good coach who's done a very good job turning around Buffalo, but I don't know that Sean McDermott is the coach to take them from a good team to a great team. I don't know that they're going to win a Super Bowl as long as Sean McDermott is a head coach in Buffalo. Those are fighting words. I know. I don't mean to cause trouble or make people upset. Although I would argue that Buffalo is a bit complacent. They are afraid of firing a coach like Sean McDermott. A good coach has won them a lot of games and made the playoffs. I think they're like, man, how could you even suggest getting rid of Sean McDermott? He's doing well. But in order to go from good to great, you got to roll the dice and gamble a little bit and go try to get an even better coach. A coach that can take Josh Allen even farther and commit to him and work with him. You know, the big problem with Sean McDermott is he's a defensive-minded head coach. Look around the NFL. Hey, the last four teams that have gone to a Super Bowl, the last four Super Bowls, both coaches have been offensive-minded head coaches. It's very rare now that a defensive-minded head coach goes to the Super Bowl. It's not happened in the last four Super Bowls. And more, you look around the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is paired with Andy Reid, a genius offensive-minded head coach. Joe Burrow paired with Zach Taylor, an offensive-minded head coach. All these great young quarterbacks have an offensive-minded head coach who's helped them grow and become the person they are, and they're kind of paired together. That's coach and quarterback. They work together for a long time. The best thing about having an offensive-minded head coach is that when people leave, often your coordinators, the people calling your plays, are going to go try to become a head coach somewhere else. But if your head coach is also the guy working directly with your quarterback, I think of Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, for example, you're not going to lose the guy who's got the key important relationship with your quarterback as time goes on. If the Jaguars are really good this year and Trevor Lawrence wins the NFL MVP, they're going to have a lot of people going, oh my gosh, your offensive coordinator is awesome. Let's hire him. And that might happen. They might lose their offensive coordinator, but they're still going to have an offensive head coach, Doug Peterson, who works closely with the quarterback and knows the quarterback really well. A couple of years ago, 2021, after the 2021 season, Josh Allen was really, really good. Everything was exciting and awesome. And Buffalo lost their offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll, he left Buffalo to go be the Giants head coach. Last year, in his first year with the Giants, a horrible football team, Brian Daboll took the Giants to the NFL playoffs. First year as a head coach, coaching in New York. I would argue that when the 2021 season ended, the better coach in Buffalo, the better head coach, left Buffalo to go be a head coach in New York. I know you're not supposed to say, hey, we're firing our head coach and promoting our offensive coordinator to head coach, but I think if you could go back in time, that might have been the right thing to do. I know it's counterintuitive. You're not supposed to do that. How could you suggest firing Sean McDermott? I am not a hater of Sean McDermott. He's done a very good job. But today, I kind of wish the head coach in Buffalo was Brian Daboll instead. Because then I know for the next 10 years, you got a good coach who can pair with Josh Allen and be there forever. And I don't know. I am not convinced Sean McDermott's the right guy to take Buffalo to win a Super Bowl. I think in order to win a Super Bowl, they're going to have to get an even better head coach. So, that is why I would argue Buffalo is complacent. In order to get farther ahead, you're going to have to make a risky move, which is uncomfortable, and risk losing more. Like, what if you hire an offensive head coach to work with Josh Allen, and he's not any good? That's a risk. High risk, high reward. I think Buffalo is happy making the playoffs every year, getting close to a Super Bowl, maybe never winning one. You know what? It's better than they were for years, and that's fine if you want that. But I would say, hey, Josh Allen is too good of a quarterback to have his talents wasted and have his career spent and not have won a Super Bowl. If he retires years from now and doesn't have a Super Bowl, that's a missed opportunity that's very, very sad for Buffalo. So in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills have a defensive head coach, Sean McDermott. I love him. He's good. He's not great. And I think the solution to solving Buffalo's problem, getting them farther down the line in the playoffs, they need an offensive head coach, more of like an offensive genius, to work with their young quarterback, Josh Allen, and pair up with him and take this team farther. So that's Buffalo. Then you got Seattle over here, the Seattle Seahawks, coached by Pete Carroll. I love Pete, man. Pete Carroll, full of energy, a guy that I would love to play for. I know people who have played for him. They have nothing but good things. Even though they can acknowledge his faults as a coach, years later they'll say, we should have done this, we should have done that. But they always speak highly of him as a person. Like, he's a really awesome person that's hard to not like and easy to root for. Pete Carroll's a defensive head coach in a league that is more and more offense-driven. And the problem in Seattle for years has been that he's not able to hire a good enough offensive coordinator. I would argue, my opinion, mind you, but I would say that the reason why Russell Wilson struggled in Seattle and had to leave was he didn't get good enough support and good enough coaching. Now, he went to Denver and struggled too. So a lot of people say, well, Zach, Russell Wilson just sucked. We'll see. Watch how Russell Wilson does this fall. If he's really great with Sean Payton, it goes back to, hey, he wasn't supported in Seattle. I don't think he was supported year one in Denver either. Nathaniel Hackett was a disaster as a head coach. Quarterbacks need good coaching. But Pete Carroll's a defensive coach in an offensive league. And I look at that offense in Seattle. They've got DK Metcalf at receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett. They are very similar to the Cincinnati Bengals, a really incredible high-powered offense with matchup nightmares across the board. I don't know who you guard. You double-team DK Metcalf, you leave one-on-one coverage on the backside with Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's not great. No matter what you do, you're wrong. They got a good defense. I think there's a lot of parallels between Seattle and the Cincinnati Bengals. They're similar football teams that have high-powered offenses, really, really centered around a really good receiving core. But I would argue that's a kind of a wasted roster, a wasted opportunity with Pete Carroll as head coach. I love Pete Carroll. Nothing against him. But I think you need an offensive head coach really to get full advantage of what's going on in Seattle. Got Geno Smith, this quarterback who did really well last year, had a breakout year. He's 32 years old. We'll see how long he can last playing really, really well. If I'm a Seattle fan, I am really, really horrified by the thought that we might miss an opportunity here with a good football team coached by the wrong coach. I love Pete Carroll. Like, again, I've said it before, I like him as a person. Pete Carroll won a Super Bowl 10 years ago in Seattle. 10 seasons ago. 9 seasons ago, he went to a Super Bowl and lost to New England. But it's been 9 years since he went to a Super Bowl, and Pete Carroll's still kind of riding on that, like resting on his laurels and saying, hey, hey, you remember when, like 10 years ago, I was a great coach and we won a lot? It's been 10 years, Pete. 10 years since you won a Super Bowl. They won in the 2013 season. We're entering the 2023 season. You know, if I'm a Seahawks fan, I would be ready to watch Pete Carroll go. I think he's on the hot seat this year. I think this is a really important year for Pete Carroll. And if they, I would have the leash really, really short. I would have fired him already, probably, honestly. I think you need an offensive coach in this league. And I don't know that Pete Carroll's the right coach to take advantage of the awesome receiving core they have in Seattle. But if I'm Seattle this year, the leash is really short. You got no room to screw up. You better be really good in the playoffs, maybe win your division. If you're not, you probably got to look elsewhere and get a better coach that can take this team where they deserve to be. So I've introduced Buffalo, a team that's got a coach, a defensive head coach, that may not be the long-term solution to help them win a Super Bowl. I also told you about Seattle, a defensive-led team with a defensive head coach that's got a lot of potential on offense, 3 incredible receivers, and maybe the solution to their problem is a really good offensive coach. Now, here's the coach. Here's the guy that might solve everything in Seattle or Buffalo. I introduce you to Eric Bieniemy. The last 5 years, Eric Bieniemy's been the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, coaching Patrick Mahomes. In that time, he's gone to 3 Super Bowls. He won 2 of them. 3 of those 5 years, he had the number 1 offense in the NFL. Now, Eric Bieniemy has been interviewing for years to become a head coach and hasn't gotten hired. And often the takeaway from this is that, hey, really the genius behind what's going on in Kansas City is they got Andy Reid, this incredible head coach, and Patrick Mahomes, maybe the greatest quarterback ever to walk the face of the earth. So yeah, of course you were great. Of course you had a great offense. Andy Reid's amazing. The quarterback's amazing. How much of that credit goes to Eric Bieniemy? Hard to tell, honestly. I don't know. But we're going to find out this year. The Washington Commanders hired Eric Bieniemy. He made a lateral move from Kansas City to Washington to be an offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. That is where Eric Bieniemy is going to be this fall. He's going to be coaching a 2023 fifth-round pick, Sam Howell. His starting quarterback's a second-year quarterback who was drafted last year in the 5th round. Unproven, this young guy, Sam Howell. And if Sam Howell does really well, and the Washington offense looks really good, I think it's going to be time to admit, hey, there's some genius going on with Eric Bieniemy. He's probably going to be the next great offensive genius head coach. The next guy, I don't know if he's going to succeed or not, but he's going to be viewed as, hey, this is an awesome offensive head coach who could really help a young quarterback on some other team or help a young offense. And the teams I think that already should be looking kind of really intently at what's going on in Washington is Seattle, the other Washington, or Buffalo. They should be looking at Eric Bieniemy saying, could this make our team better? Could Seattle really get full advantage of their incredible receiving core with Eric Bieniemy designing their offense? Could Josh Allen be taken to even farther heights and even better and maybe win a Super Bowl if he was coached by Eric Bieniemy? Now, none of this is going to matter if Eric Bieniemy is a terrible offensive coordinator this year. This really depends on how well Sam Howell does, how well Washington's offense looks, and what goes down with Eric Bieniemy. But those are the teams. If I'm a Bills fan or if I'm a Seahawks fan, I am watching intently on what's going on in Washington this fall. And if Washington's offense looks really good, I am lobbying hard. Hey, can we hire that guy, Eric Bieniemy? Can he become our head coach? Out with a defensive head coach. Sorry, Pete Carroll. We love you, but you're out. It's been 10 years since you went to a Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl. 9 since you went to one. Hey, Sean McDermott, we just lost in the playoffs for the 3rd year without getting to where we want to go. Maybe you're not going to take us far enough. Eric Bieniemy might be the solution to either one of these teams' problems. And again, if I'm a Bills fan or I'm a Seahawks fan, I am intently watching what's going on this fall with the Washington Commanders and their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. By the way, I want to share a note on Buffalo. The question really is, what can Von Miller do this fall in Buffalo? Does he have anything left? He's a veteran pass rusher, came over from LA. He's 34 years old. He tore his ACL in November on Thanksgiving against Detroit. Von Miller's got he was given a 6-year, $120 million contract. They can get out of it earlier. That's like $45 million guaranteed. But bringing in Von Miller was supposed to be what put Buffalo over the top. He got hurt. It didn't happen. They lost in the playoffs earlier, last year. And I'm just not sure what Von Miller has left in the tank. He's coming off of a torn ACL now. I remember when J.J. Watt went to the Arizona Cardinals, and I thought, oh, wow, J.J. Watt got a year or two left. He's a veteran guy. He's a really great player. Arizona at the time was a team that was trying to get their act together and win and get better. And it went badly. The Cardinals didn't win. They didn't get better. And J.J. Watt was kind of not that great. He was a shell of himself. He withered away and was never heard from again. So I'm just curious what Von Miller is going to bring to the table this fall in Buffalo. Is he going to be J.J. Watt in Arizona? Not quite as good and kind of wither away to nothing? Or is he going to bring an impact? Because if Von Miller is at the top of his game this fall, or whenever he gets back from his injury, that's a guy who can make a huge impact. But will Von Miller be at the top of his game is the big question. And keep your eye on that in Buffalo. I want to ask you guys, am I the only person who likes the Threads app, by the way? Like I'm not a Twitter guy. It's too negative. It makes me depressed and really upset. Threads is more like positive Twitter. I've actually been enjoying Threads. I got all my followers from Instagram, and now it feels like I'm the only person there. But I ask a question out there. Hey, are you guys on Threads? Is it just me? Am I just the only person tweeting about Madden 11? I mean, see, that's the thing. I'm not going to say threading. I'm never going to say, yeah, I was threading last night. No, I was tweeting last night on Threads. I realize how that's a problem. I don't know. Give me your feedback on Threads. I'm curious if you're using it or have been on it. I like it, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on there, which is, I'm gonna keep using it, but I'll give it 3 months, and if 3 months from now, 90 days, nothing's happening, it's probably gonna die and go away. So I don't know. Let me know if you're into Threads. But I'm never gonna say threading though. That's just not a. In fact, it sounds more like you're threatening someone. I'm threading them. What? What'd you say? Hey, by the way, I want to read something. I'm going to pull up the graphic I have. I want to make sure I get it right. Mike Vrable, the Titans head coach, has 10 receiving touchdowns in his career. He was a linebacker in the NFL. Mike Vrable played linebacker for years in New England. In that time, he occasionally would play tight end on the goal line, and he got 10 touchdown passes. Right now, Mike Vrable, the Titans head coach, has more receiving touchdowns than any other player on the Titans roster. Woo, not great. Not great if you're a Titans fan, hoping that your receiving core gets better this year. Your head coach, who didn't play on offense, has more receiving touchdowns than anyone else on your team. Oh, boy. Not great. And now that we're doing weird side news from the offseason, by the way, I saw this today too. Former NFL quarterback, potential Hall of Famer. I don't think he's quite a Hall of Famer, but he's close, and he was really had a great career. Phillip Rivers' wife is getting ready to have their 10th child. So, first of all, shout out to Tiffany Rivers. You are a factory. That's 10 children. Wow. My first thought when I read that Phillip Rivers was having his 10th kid was, that is insanely expensive. Thank goodness you made millions of dollars playing in the NFL. Because I can't even afford one kid. I can barely afford to take care of myself, let alone 10 children. Oh my gosh. And then, my thought process after hearing that news was, traveling's got to be awful. Having basically a whole daycare following you around all the time. I mean, I wouldn't want to be around 10 children, let alone 10 of my own children. That's a lot. And then the final thought I had after hearing that Phillip Rivers' wife was getting ready to have their 10th child. 10 children! It's insane to me. That's a lot. I was the more wholesome thought was, when they're grandparents someday, and they're having family get-togethers, and all 10 of their kids have more kids, and they all come to hang out on the Phillip Rivers family estate for Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's going to be awesome. I would imagine being Grandpa Phillip and having all these grandkids and kids. I mean, that's going to be fun for them. So I'll probably never have kids, but I am, and I don't, it's not really sports news. I don't know if this really fits into the show, but I saw this and was like, I have to comment on it. It's so fascinating. Like 10 kids, stable relationship, committed relationship. They're all his kids, all with one woman. Tiffany Rivers, 10 children. It's a factory. That's crazy. And before we get into Patreon questions, our Patreon questions today are absolutely incredible. Most of the show is going to be filled with them. It's going to be awesome. I've got a really great idea for a Halloween costume that I think I'm about to say it, and I'm not sure if I should say it. I maybe should just keep it to myself until Thanksgiving. But now, I mean, here's the thing. What am I going to lose by telling people my idea? Like, maybe someone steals it, but then we can trace back to this day when I said I'm going to do this. And if someone steals it, it is what it is, but I think it's hilarious. I think I'd get a haircut, keep the beard, wear a better shirt, like a really nice buttoned-up dress shirt. And I think for my Halloween episode this fall, I'm going to dress up as a young Colin Cowherd. I think that would be so funny. I think I could look like him even. I'll get the dumb, I watched a video of him yesterday, get the dumb little clear earpiece even if I really can. How funny would that be? I think that's a like hilarious idea that would make for good content is, what's my Halloween costume this year? You just look like you. Oh, I'm a young Colin Cowherd. I think that's funny. I don't know. I've been really thinking like what would be a funny Halloween costume? That might be the one. There's better out there, but I don't want to be the guy just in like a banana suit or something on Halloween doing a podcast. Like that's a more clever, nuanced one where you're like, what's your outfit? Your what? Oh, that's funny. I think that would be a really interesting and hilarious Halloween costume. All right, let's go to questions from Patreon. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Zach Schomler, patreon.com/Zach Schomler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to. Please do. It literally pays my rent. But $1 a month gives you access to submit questions on Patreon. Now, I do not guarantee to read your question on the show. My only guarantee is I look at every single question with my eyeballs and I pick the top couple to read on the show. Question number 1 today comes from Logan. If I can pull it up. It's not coming up. It's coming very slowly. Also, I switched my water today. I've been using like these Mio. They're not Mio. They're the Walmart brand, but the little squirt things. They squirt out like a juice concentrate into your water to make your water flavored. Well, I bought Gatorade powder last night because it's like 10 times cheaper. You get like way more servings for like way less of a price. And it's not, I don't like it as much, you know? I mean, I have everything watered down. I just want a little bit of flavor in my water, but it's not a good flavor. It's more like a kind of a I don't know. I'm just adding powder to the water and mixing it up, and maybe that's not enough. Maybe I need something else too, but maybe I need more powder. But it's not great. It's okay. It's not sweet enough, really. It's more tart, which I think is better for me. I don't want the super sweet thing. I don't want to be just only drinking Gatorade all day. The goal was to have just a bit of flavor in my water, but this is backfiring so far. Not as good. Anyway, Logan writes in. Logan says, and this is a long one from Logan, but it's good, and I think it's interesting. Logan says, A up, Zach or Jack's optical nerves. A up, Zach or Jack's optical nerves. Zach or Jack's optic nerves? That's funny, but what's A up? Like, A up? Hello? You could have said hi, maybe. First off, I want to say I'm super stoked that you're back doing SOS. Really happy for you that you're doing what you love. With such enthusiasm, it's awesome to see. I want to ask you something about Geno Smith. I know you did a great segment on Geno in a recent episode, but I've noticed he seems to be underrated or underappreciated in some recent preseason quarterback rankings I've seen. Pro Football Focus have him at, ranked number 15 below Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, and Justin Herbert, who I believe is a tad high at number 4. CBS has him in their 4th tier beneath Matthew Stafford again, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, and Tua. Now, I'm aware there's a possibility that Geno is a one-season wonder. However, based on where each quarterback is at this point in time, what they did in the season just passed, I think Geno is easily a top 10 quarterback. Especially consider his passing efficiency or completion percentage. Logan continues, I think it's ridiculous to have Geno lower than Matthew Stafford, Tua, Watson, Fields, and Wilson. Matthew Stafford struggles to not get injured, and even when he was playing, he was throwing way too many interceptions. Regardless of how good Tua is, when he's playing, it's not worth much if he keeps getting serious concussions due to his reckless playing style. Deshaun Watson hasn't proven he's the same guy he was with Houston. Wilson hasn't proven he's the same guy he was with Seattle. Justin Fields has shown flashes of potential, but has yet to really prove himself as a great NFL quarterback. So, diatribe over. Zach or Jack, do you think Geno is being disrespected with these rankings? Or do you think the rankings are fair based on the fact that Geno is yet to prove himself as more than a one-season wonder? Where would you rank Geno amongst NFL quarterbacks on how good they are right now? Not how good they were at their best, which seems to be how Pro Football Focus and CBS are rating quarterbacks. P.S. Sorry for the diatribe. I can be quite diatribaceous, which is not a word, but I do love that. Especially when high on coffee like I am right now, and then the little emoji with like a semicolon, or just the two dots, and then the P, which is just the P, and I like that. I think it's funny. Logan, thanks for the write-in. How good is Geno Smith? Where does he rank? Rankings are kind of dumb. Like, I like a tier better. I would put him, it's weird to put him lower than Tua. Maybe on the same tier as Tua, but you're telling me Geno Smith and the Jets offense wouldn't be awesome? Probably would. Now, I think there's an unknown. How good is Geno going to be next year? We don't know. Or this fall. Like, he was great last year. It was 1 year. You know, Case Keenum had a great little bit of time in the NFL as well. Like, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks have one great year and then never do anything ever again. That happens a lot. More likely, I think that Geno Smith is going to be something like Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub, his career as a quarterback started and ended as a backup in Atlanta. He had this 4-year stretch. I think he was a quarterback in Houston for 6 years total. But he had a 4-year stretch where he was really good. 2009 to 2012. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. In 2009, he threw for 4,700 yards. Matthew Schaub, threw for almost 5,000 yards 1 year in the NFL. Like, he had a really great couple years. But it came and went. He started as a backup in Atlanta and ended his career as a backup in Atlanta, with a brief period in the middle where he was really, really good. Geno Smith is 32 years old, much older than Matt Schaub was, and he became the guy. And I wonder, how long does Geno Smith have? How long is this window where Geno Smith is going to play well? 4 years? 1 year? 2 years? 3 years? I don't know. I think we're entering the prime of Geno Smith's career as an NFL quarterback. He's a great leader. He has been there before. He's seen everything he's going to see defensively. Physically, I think he could play for another 8 years, something like that. But what I'm worried about with Geno Smith is that he's going to spend the prime years of his career playing under the wrong head coach, Pete Carrol. That's really my concern. But I ask you this question again. How long is Geno going to be good? We don't know. We're not sure. We'll find out. And when it comes to rankings, I don't like just saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because how do you differentiate that? What I'll say with Geno Smith is he's somewhere in the ballpark of like a Derek Carr or a Kirk Cousins or a Dak Prescott. He's never going to make some of the plays that Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow can make. Like, he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback ever. Geno Smith isn't. But he's shown with a good team he can win. He's Kirk Cousins, or Kirk Cousins is more like the best of the average quarterbacks. He's more like Dak Prescott. He's fine. You know, he made the playoffs, did really well last year. But I don't know how much better Geno Smith can get. I think he's near his ceiling. So that's where I would rank Geno Smith. I don't think it's fair to like put numbers on it, 1 to 15. But I think somewhere around wherever you would put Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, Tua maybe is in that conversation. That's where I would put Geno Smith. I think that's about right. I don't know. What did Russ do last year? Nothing. But I think Russell Wilson, based on what he's done in the past, could be better than Geno Smith. But we'll see. Who knows? Now, the Hammman writes in with a really interesting question also about Seattle. Hammman says this. Hey, Zach, how much do you believe in Pete Carroll going into 2023? Do you think that Russ was holding Pete back, or was Pete holding back Russ? Glad you're back in my ear canals. These are two separate issues, in my opinion. Russell Wilson was not properly supported in Seattle, in my opinion. They never hired a great offensive coordinator. The offensive line really, really struggled. And without support, Russell Wilson had to develop a lot of really bad habits in Seattle. He became Superman, basically, playing with bad habits to try to win games with a bad situation around him. I think Pete Carroll failed Russ by not getting him what he needed, not hiring the right offensive coordinator. Now, I love Pete a lot. I said this before. I said it earlier in the show. 71 years old, full of youth and energy still. Players love him. Despite his flaws, I would like to play for him. He seems like an awesome guy who treats people fairly and brings this great energy to work every day. Like, creates a good environment to work in. However, Pete Carroll's a defensive head coach in an offense-driven league. I think Pete's got, at best, a couple of years left. I'm surprised Seattle hasn't forced him into retirement already. I think they respect him. They like him. He's well-liked in the building. And the Seahawks are trying to figure out who their owner is. But, I believe that there is a lot of potential in Seattle that's being missed out on because they've got the wrong head coach. And I said it earlier in the show, it's been 10 years since he won a Super Bowl. That's a great memory from a long time ago. But I've seen a lot better coaches get fired in that time. And it's interesting that Pete Carroll's still hanging on to this long, distant memory of an old Super Bowl. And I wonder what Seahawks fans think about him. I was hanging out with my friend Dax, is a TV anchor. We were hanging out last night. He wants Pete Carroll fired 2 years ago. Shout out to Dax. You're awesome, man. Dax has got this little necklace that says Dax. Like, it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was like, oh, man. He pulled that off. I don't think I could pull that off. But yeah, Dax and I were talking about Seattle last night. And he's like, yeah, I want Pete Carroll out. So that's one Seahawks fan's perspective. I'm curious what other Seahawks fans would say. But I'm happy to. I love Pete, but let him walk. What's he done for me lately? Not a lot in Seattle. Justin writes in. Justin says, "Heyo, Zach. Glad to see you are back making content, and awesome to see you back in Hawaii. Thank you, my man. I'm a longtime listener from Arizona, and my question is regarding Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon. I can't say I have much faith in this hire, as I think getting an offensive-minded head coach is the way to go these days. I am not sure he's the right guy for the job, given he's a first-time head coach, the weak roster, and a bad culture with things such as players needing to pay for meals and work out. Feels like a horizontal move from Cliff Kingsbury, but I'd like to know your thoughts. P.S. I hope you had a good time here in Arizona when you came during the Super Bowl." Thank you, Justin. Actually, Sanders, if you're listening, I hung out with this guy Sanders and his friend group at a Super Bowl party. Amazing. Really nice people. I loved Arizona. I was surprised at how green it was, actually. I spent a little over 2 weeks in Vegas for a work event at the Shrine Bowl. Vegas was rocky and brown, and everyone's pale as all get out. Nobody goes outside there. Like, everyone was like a vampire. You get to Arizona, down Highway 93, little over like 4 hours and 40 minutes away. It's like green. Not only is it way more green, the hills were green, there were bushes and trees, and I mean, look, I live in Hawaii. It's not as green as Hawaii. Arizona is not the greenest place I've ever seen, but after 2 weeks in Vegas looking at literal rocks for like miles, suddenly seeing bushes that are green in Arizona made me go, whoa, this is awesome. It was green. There was a culture of people going outside. I was shocked. In my head, Vegas and Arizona are both in the desert. Like, Vegas and Phoenix are both the desert. They're going to be very similar cities, but they could not have been more different. There's no outdoor culture in Vegas. Everyone's pale. It's not pretty to look at, the nature. Arizona, Phoenix, it's pretty outside. The nature's there. People are hanging out outside. What a different cultural experience city to city. I couldn't believe that. Now, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals head coach. I feel bad for Jonathan Gannon. I think he's just the only sucker who would take the job, honestly. It's a bad football team. They've got no quarterback. Kyler Murray, their quarterback, might miss the entire year recovering from a torn ACL. What do you say? Like, he's a babysitter for a couple of years until they're ready to win again and they hire a real coach. I mean, I hope that's not true. I like Jonathan Gannon. He did a great job in Philly, but I think he should have stayed in Philly. I don't know that going from the defensive coordinator in Philly to the head coach in Arizona was actually a promotion. I think in many ways you now have a worse life, and I would rather be the defensive coordinator in Philly than the head coach. Winning, by the way, in Philly with a great group of players around you. Because Jonathan Gannon got offered a job as a head coach. This is maybe the only shot he'll ever get to be a head coach. He burned it. He wasted it. He went to the Arizona Cardinals, a horrible franchise. He's going to do bad in Arizona, and then he'll never, ever get another shot to become a head coach because no one's going to believe he can do the job when I don't think he was ever even given a fair shot to do the job. He was not put in a position to succeed in Arizona. Already, he's not even coached a game yet. I don't know why he went to Arizona. The money must have been amazing. It better be great. If I'm Jonathan Gannon, I'd say, hey, how about I use this to leverage a better contract as defensive coordinator in Philadelphia? You could have stayed in Philly. You could have kept winning. You could have had a good time. And maybe someday you would have got a real good opportunity to become a head coach. Arizona's not a good opportunity. I don't think they could get anyone to take that job. He was the only sucker willing to do it. That's the honest reality. I think a similar situation happened with DeMeco Ryans in Houston. I think not a lot of people wanted the job. But unlike Jonathan Gannon, I think DeMeco Ryans is going to, I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl, but I think he could be there for 4 or 5 years and make Houston respectable. I think DeMeco Ryans in Houston could take Houston from a horrible, awful football team into a decent, okay football team. That's a success story there. He'll never win a Super Bowl. And I think, honestly, if Houston's going to want to go if 4 years from now Houston's a good team and wants to win a Super Bowl, they might have to hire a new coach that's even better. But I think DeMeco Ryans is going to succeed a little bit and could be there for years. I don't think Jonathan Gannon's going to succeed at all in Arizona. He's being set up to fail. And, oh boy, what a bad opportunity for him. And I would have loved to talk to him before he took the job. I'm sure he was excited, but did he not have anyone in his family going like, hey, are you sure? Are you sure you want to go there? Do you know anything about this organization? And your quarterback's not going to play till like week 15 next year, so he's probably not going to play at all. So you took a job with no quarterback and a horrible organization. Are you sure? You want this job? You're winning in Philly. Use this job offer to leverage more money in Philly. That's what he should have done. And he didn't. He took the job. And again, I think a great line. Jonathan Gannon was the only sucker willing to take the job in Arizona. That's my honest opinion. All right, Carter wrote in. Carter said, Detroit sports media was discussing Cooper Kupp to Detroit. I know right now it's a bit hypothetical at the moment, but in the case of a Rams rebuild, do you think Detroit should go make a move for Cooper Kupp? I think that makes them the number one offense in the league day one, but I would personally prefer trading for Aaron Donald because I would think that would bring the overall roster up. What does Zach the Oracle say? Oh, man. I mean, either player, Aaron Donald or Cooper Kupp, makes Detroit better. Would Cooper Kupp make Detroit the number one offense in the NFL? Whoa, Carter, slow down, buddy. I love you, man. I think you're a bit your fandom is showing, right? You got to be a Lions fan because that's the kind of thing a Lions fan would say. I don't think there's anything that can take Kansas City from being the number one offense in the NFL, quite frankly. But would I rather go for Aaron Donald I think Aaron Donald fits in really well in Detroit with what their head coach is Dan Campbell's doing. trying to get a team full of physical guys who play with a lot of intensity. I think Aaron Donald fits into the culture they're building in Detroit. But I love the idea of getting Cooper Kupp. I mean, if I'm Detroit, whether I'm getting Cooper Kupp or Aaron Donald, I want to do it without giving up any players I currently have. I'll give up a lot of draft picks, but if you can trade a first-round pick for Cooper Kupp, and I mean, imagine, or even I would trade 2 first-round picks to get Cooper Kupp, quite frankly. I think that's a great trade if you are Detroit. Imagine this offense. Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds, and then at running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. They got a great offensive line in Detroit, a really good defense. I mean, man, if Detroit can find a way to trade for Cooper Kupp, that would be a game changer and make them very, very good. And so, yeah, I love that idea. I think remember, he's young too. How old is Cooper Kupp? Let me look it up. I think he's like 26, 27, something like that. Let's find out. Maybe he's 28. Cooper Kupp age. Cooper Kupp is, he's 30. It's older than I thought. But Tyreek Hill's 29. Devontae Adams is 30. Stephon Diggs is 30. OBJ is 30. Wow, that's crazy. But, yeah, I would trade for Cooper Kupp, honestly. Of all the assets, I mean, think of the assets in LA. You've got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp is the one that benefits Detroit most. I mean, the one thing about what Detroit did this offseason is they didn't go get another receiver. And I think Cooper Kupp would solve that problem. I was really hoping that he would be... I want to find... One second. Jalen Ramsey... He's in... Okay, no. Jalen Ramsey is now in Miami. I don't know what... So he's not even an asset in LA. I said that and was like, that doesn't seem right. So Jalen Ramsey is in Miami. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm crazy. Regardless, the assets in LA are Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. And the more I say it out loud, if I'm Detroit, I think it's better you trade for Cooper Kupp, because the only possible weakness I think in your football team right now is that you didn't go get a good receiver this offseason. Got a crazy good running back who's going to pound the rock. He's really quick. Jahmyr Gibbs can catch the ball out of the backfield. But you add Cooper Kupp to what they got going on in Detroit. And if you can do it without giving anybody up, I mean, I would give up a first-round pick and Josh Reynolds maybe to LA, because then LA feels like we got a first-round pick and we got a young receiver who could turn into something. But I don't want to give up much of the assets I currently have playing on the field if I'm the Detroit Lions. So I don't want to lose a player to go get Cooper Kupp, but I would trade Josh Reynolds and a first-round pick for Cooper Kupp. That's a great move. And if you're Detroit and you're trying to win your division, make the playoffs, I mean, that would make Detroit really, really interesting to go get Cooper Kupp out of LA, and it would pair Cooper Kupp back up with Jared Goff, the former Rams quarterback. So that's an interesting thought. And hey, Detroit Sports Radio, you got some interesting minds out there thinking good things out there. Lucas writes in. Lucas says, "Hey, Zacharoni and Cheese, longtime listener and finally in the position to support you on Patreon. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Your dedication and hard work to your podcast and your business and your passion is inspiring. Thank you so much. My question is a two-parter. Number one, what NFL team do you think is the most directionless right now?" Which is, directionless meaning not good enough to contend, not bad enough to tank, and unwilling to accept their bad position. And two, if you had complete control of that franchise, what would you do with it? Thanks, and keep crushing it. So what teams are the most hopeless right now as I look around the NFL? They're not horrible, they're not bad, they're just somewhere stuck in limbo going nowhere. I'm not going to lie to you, Lucas, I had a really hard time with this one. Because most NFL teams that are in a bad spot at least have a plan. They're at least trying something or making a move here and there to try and get farther down the road. Whether they've got a young quarterback they believe is their future, or they hired a new coach, or they made some improvement somewhere else. Like, for example, New Orleans brought in Derek Carr to be quarterback, and they're thinking adding Derek Carr is going to make them better. Tennessee, they're a team that's kind of stuck in limbo, but they drafted Will Levis, and they're hoping, hey, maybe in time Will Levis can become our franchise quarterback. Same with Washington. They brought in Sam Howell. They're committed to Sam Howell. The Patriots added an offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien. They're hoping he's the difference maker to make the Patriots better. So most of the teams around the NFL that I would probably normally say are bad, at least they've got a move that makes sense, that whether it's going to work or not, the thinking logically brings you to, hey, they're trying to be better, and I can see what moves they're making to try to get better as a football team. Now, there are two teams in two cities about 4 hours and 40 minutes apart. You drive by the Hoover Dam, it's beautiful, then you go down 93, and you go, that's the drive from Vegas to Phoenix. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals are two organizations that you asked me how to fix them. I don't know. I'm not sure. The Raiders are down bad. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. They're coached by Josh McDaniels. They're basically the Patriots in a state that allows gambling. They're the Black Raiders. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So the Black Patriots, excuse me. The Raiders are, man. I don't know that Jimmy Garoppolo's the answer long term. I don't know that Derek Carr was either, but I don't feel good about the direction the Raiders are headed at all. I think they're a team that isn't competitive, not for a playoff run, not for a Super Bowl, but they're also not terrible. They're just stuck kind of in the middle. And I don't know what I would do to them. You've already replaced your quarterback. You already fired your coach, John Gruden. You brought in a new coach who's too new to fire already, I think. They're trying stuff, but it feels like they're throwing darts at the wall with their eyes closed, and they're throwing a lot of darts that aren't even hitting the wall. You're like, I guess they would be hitting the wall, but not the dartboard. Like they're just nowhere near where they need to be, and they're hoping and closing their eyes and just praying that one of them sticks. And I don't believe in what the Raiders are doing at all. And then the even more hopeless franchise is down in Phoenix, man. The Cardinals are going nowhere. Like, even adding a healthy Kyler Murray whenever he gets back from his torn ACL injury, I don't think Kyler Murray is going to save the Cardinals and make them way better. So I don't have an answer on how I would fix them, but the Raiders and Cardinals are the two franchises in the NFL right now that I'm like, I don't even know that what you're doing is going to help. Like, I think there's you can argue that a lot. There's a lot of teams, every team that is bad made some kind of move to try to get better. The Saints added Derek Carr. Is that good or not? I'm not sure, but there's a small chance that he's the answer and that the Saints get better. I just don't believe that Jimmy Garoppolo makes the Raiders better. It's one of the only teams that made a move that you can logically track, and I go, really? That's your move? Okay. Good luck. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. And Arizona's even worse. Like their great move, the big move the Cardinals made this offseason was they hired a defensive head coach, Jonathan Gannon. Okay, I mean he was a great coordinator. They got no quarterback, a bad roster. They lost their star receiver. Their quarterback's not going to play all year. Good luck. Arizona's screwed. They're headed for the number 1 overall pick, honestly, in Arizona. So I guess great for them. They can draft Caleb Williams. And what does Arizona do? If they get the number 1 overall pick, I guess you got to draft Caleb Williams. But then what do you do with Kyler Murray? You know? Interesting stuff going down for the Arizona Cardinals. Reno writes in. Reno, not Nevada. Reno says, "Hey, Zach. First of all, I want to thank you for all of the content from Strong Opinion Sports to Zach Schaumler Talking. I've been listening for about 2 years now, and you've become one of my favorite YouTubers and podcasters. By the way, Zach Schaumler Talking comes back next week, so I'm now settled in Hawaii. We've done 2 weeks doing this show. We're back doing sports, and we've got a rhythm now. I feel like I'm ready to add Zach Schaumler Talking back into the schedule, so that's coming back." Reno continues. Reno says, "This is more of a request, but is there a chance you'd be open to making more sports show reviews? I really enjoyed your series on Man in the Arena, and I was wondering if you could recreate this in some way. The new quarterback series is coming out on Netflix, and it would be cool to hear your thoughts. P.S. I know you're busy with the 4 weekly SOS episodes, but I would be ecstatic if you could bring back Zach Schaumler talking in some capacity. Keep up the good work, Reno. Zach Schaumler talking is coming back. It's my other podcast that's non-sports related. It's really fun. I really like it. I share my journey as a human. I'm going to watch that quarterback series on Netflix this weekend. We'll see what happens. I think I can do... I'm either going to cover it as a topic on the show, like maybe at the end of Monday's episode, or if I feel like I've got a lot to say, like if I feel like I have an hour's worth of stuff to say, what I'll probably do is just record like a spoiler cast, and I'll do an entire episode dedicated to that TV show, sharing my thoughts and breaking it down. Let me know what you guys want, but I think that's either making it a small topic at the end of Monday's show or just dedicating an entire podcast to it. Either one's a good idea, and I'm curious what you guys would like from that. Michael writes in. Michael says, "Hey, Zach, it's me again, the resident Daniel Jones believer. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on him now that we saw a year of Daniel Jones under Brian Daboll, and what it will take for people to finally give him some respect. It's crazy seeing Jones doubters who also praise unproven guys like Trey Lance and Justin Fields." Yeah, I don't know what to make of Daniel Jones, honestly. I feel uneducated here. I've made some jokes here and there, and I think people think I'm a hater of Daniel Jones. That is not at all how I mean to come across. The reality is I am uninformed when it comes to Daniel Jones, and I'm not going to say what I'm working on. I'm not going to say... I really hate feeling like the guy who gives false promises. So I want to be very careful from here on out. Like, for example, I had Brian Simpson on the show earlier this week. That's a massive guest, in my opinion. It's a guy who's been on Joe Rogan multiple times. He's done a lot of comedy with Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, Tom Segura. Like, he's a legend, in my opinion. I had him on the show on Wednesday. Like, that's a big deal to me. And I didn't want to tease it. I said I got a guest coming, but I didn't want to say who it was, because I knew if something goes wrong and Brian can't come on the show, I don't want to have said Brian Simpson's coming on, then have him not come on and me look stupid. So I want to be careful from here on out what I say. And I don't want to say a video's coming soon. I'm working on a project. We'll see how it goes. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of energy, but I'll just say I'm working on a Daniel Jones project that I think a lot of people will like, that is going to help me be more informed on how Daniel Jones is as a player. What he did well last year, what he needs to work on. And so, Michael, I've got an answer soon on how I feel about Daniel Jones. I'll leave it there. Daniel, not Daniel Jones, but Daniel writes in and says, "Hey, Zachy Dimes. Excited to see you back. My question, albeit biased, is if the Giants at 7.5 wins is the worst line in the NFL. For a team that was 9-7-1 last year and won a playoff game, I don't see how Vegas thinks we're a sub-500 team. We lost only one plus starter, Julian Love, and patched up almost all of our roster holes with tight end Darren Waller, 2 receivers, Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell, a center, John Michael Schmitz, a D tackle, Ashawn Robinson, a linebacker, Bobby Okereke, and a corner, Deontay Banks. So the Giants added a lot of talent to their roster. They'd only lost one starter. Not to mention, Michael continues, we have Daniel Jones, albeit Daniel Jones in his first full offseason with a competent coaching staff and actual weapons. He's never had an 800-yard pass catcher his entire career. And 2 top 10 picks, Thibodeau and Neal, entering their second year. Our schedule's tough, no doubt. But I don't see how the Bears, the literal worst team in the NFL last year, have the same projected record as us. Even as a delusional Giants fan, am I missing something? That's a great point, too. You got a pass rusher and an offensive lineman entering their second year. I loved what the Giants did in the draft last year. You know, they drafted linemen. You know, I think that's the best investment you can make from your franchise, is drafting linemen in the first round. Linemen or receivers, brilliant move every time. I'm always going to praise that. I like drafting linemen more than I like drafting receivers. I think your team wins up front more than any other way. Linemen are so underrated in football, and I love what the Giants did. I forgot about that. That's beautiful and amazing. Why are the Giants viewed as a team that's not going to win a lot of games this year? Here's why. The number 2, this is not the most important reason, but this is a reason. People just don't know what to expect from Daniel Jones this year. How much better do you expect him to get? I'm not sure. Vegas clearly isn't sure. That's one aspect here. But the real problem with the Giants, the number one thing that I think is causing people to doubt the New York Giants is this. They're in a tough division. They play Dallas twice. They play Philly twice. They play Washington twice. And Washington's going to be better this year than they were last year. So that's 6 really tough games already. Then you realize, hey, the schedule for New York is they're playing the NFC West and the AFC East. So Seattle, a playoff team. 49ers, a playoff team. Miami, a playoff team. Buffalo, a playoff team. The Jets, who have Aaron Rodgers now. The Packers. The Saints. The Patriots. I mean, that's a lot of really good football teams, potentially. The Giants have a really tough schedule this fall. So they might be a better team, but they play a harder schedule. They really only have 3 easy gimme wins this year. They play Arizona, they play the Rams, and they play the Raiders. And the Raiders don't feel like an easy gimme. They're a team that's a game they should win, but I'm not sure. So I understand why. That's an interesting bet, though. I've never gambled in my life. If you're a Giants fan, Daniel, if you really believe that, I'd put $20 on the Giants. Why not? $20, they're going to win more than they're projected to. Can they win 9 games? They can. What are they, 7.5? That's an interesting bet, isn't it? Could the Giants win more than 7.5 games? So can they win 8 games? I think that's how that works. I don't know gambling very well. But if a team's at 7.5, is that assuming that they are going to win 7.5 games? I think it's okay. I've never gambled in my life. I don't know. But I think that's how that works. And that's interesting. But I'm not sure they can win that many games. Like you look at their schedule. Playoff team. So Seattle playoff team. 49ers playoff team. Miami playoff team. Buffalo playoff team. Jets have a great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers. The Packers. The Saints. New England's going to be better with finally a great offensive coordinator. Dallas is really good. They're not a Super Bowl team. I'm tired of that every year, but the Cowboys are good. Let's not pretend they're bad. Philly, they're good. They're going to play them twice. Washington's going to be better. Do we have news? What's going to happen? I think Monday is the deadline to find out what happens with Saquon Barkley. Let me Google it. Saquon Barkley. Because you never know. While I'm talking, he might have already signed a new contract. Saquon Barkley news. Reportedly... Yeah, so we still don't have a resolution on the contract offer for Saquon Barkley. I think by Monday, we're going to learn more about Saquon Barkley and figure out what's going on. By Tuesday, we'll really know and have better news, and we can cover it more in depth. So, Daniel, to answer your question, we don't know how much better Daniel Jones is going to be, and the schedule for the New York Giants is a really, really tough one. That is why a lot of people think they're not going to be very good this year. It's not that they're a bad team or got worse. It's that their competition got better. All right, Phillip wrote in. Phillip said, "Hey, Zach, what is your opinion on the ongoing college football conference realignments? For example, BYU going to the Big 12 or San Diego State trying to leave the Mountain West for the Pac-12 and failing miserably." So we got a couple big changes coming in college football. In 2024, Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. That's not this fall, that's next fall. Next fall, we also are going to have USC and UCLA going from the Pac-12 to the Big 10. This fall, the Big 12 has added BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida. Houston's awesome. That's a really big school with a lot of kids at it. I think BYU is a great missed opportunity for the Pac-12. BYU probably fits in better with the Big 12 simply because the Big 12 also has TCU and Baylor, other religious schools. And when you're dealing with religious schools, some of the private schools like that, it's the rules are different. Do they compete on Sundays? There's all these little stuff you got to deal with that are nuances that if you're running a whole conference and a whole organization, because it's not just football. I mean, this is also going to affect basketball, softball, baseball, everything. I think the Big 12 is better suited to help BYU and their needs everywhere because of their, relationship and understanding working with TCU and Baylor. But I I was lobbying hard for the Pac-12 to go get BYU. You know, I think BYU is just, there's so much money to be made with the BYU fan base. It's a fan base that is rich and they're abundant. They're all over the country. A lot of people support BYU. And if I'm the Pac-12, I'm like, hey, we're going to have games anywhere and people are going to show up. BYU fans are going to come and they're going to spend money. And if I am a football league, I'm like, yo, I want to involve BYU because they got money. Now, the Big 12, they added BYU, they added Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida. They're going to lose Texas and Oklahoma. When it's all said and done, the Big 12 is going to end up basically being a glorified Mountain West. They're more of a mid-major. They're not a Power 5 conference anymore, not really. So that's one thing is I think the Big 12 has dropped down a tier in the quality they're going to bring to the table football-wise. And there is no more Power 5 conferences. There are not 5 powerful, great conferences in college football. There's the Power 2, the SEC and the Big 10. And the Big 10 and the SEC are going to dominate the college football playoffs for the next however many years until alignment happens again and alignment changes, because it's the SEC and the Big 10 as the 2 top dogs with the best teams and the most money. Then the Pac-12 and the ACC are like a tier below them. Then the Big 12 are a tier below those 2, and then there's everybody else. So I think that it's very important to say the Power 5 is no more. College football is now the SEC or the Big 10. And then occasionally the ACC with Clemson or the Pac-12 with whoever wins them is going to be interesting, but not nationally relevant. Like the college football conversation is totally shifted to it's the Big 10 or the SEC, and that's it. Once USC and UCLA join the Big 10 and Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, it's over. Like, there's only going to be 2 relevant, interesting conferences in college football nationally, in my opinion. Now, everyone's got their favorite team. You're a North Carolina fan, you're going to watch North Carolina games. You're a Clemson fan, you're an Oregon fan, you're going to watch your team. I understand that. But when it comes to winning in the college football playoffs, it's not going to be a competition. It's going to be the Big 10 or the SEC, and that's it. You mentioned San Diego State. I got to say this, man. With the Pac-12 losing USC and UCLA, there is no more school in Southern California in the Pac-12. That's a problem. So if I was a Pac-12, I'd say, hey, just from a recruiting standpoint, we want a team in Southern California. Let's go get San Diego State. That makes sense. A place in Southern California you can recruit to. We might have lost USC. Let's bring in San Diego State. Let's elevate them and raise them up and make them better and make them a recruiting hotbed. I like that idea. It's good for San Diego State. It's good for the Pac-12 to have a presence in Southern California. Once they lose the 2 teams in LA, they will not have one. I don't think you can fill that void with San Diego State, but you could try. That's an interesting thought. I'm curious what happens there. By the way, my stepsister goes to San Diego State. You'll never find her different last name, but I like it there. San Diego State's cool, and I am interested what happens with them in the Pac-12. They're trying to join. It's gone bad so far. I think you're a bit dramatic, Phillip. I don't think they've failed yet, but it's certainly not gone well for them. All right. Aaron writes in. Aaron says, hey, Zach, really psyched you're back. There really isn't anyone out there who can carry a one-man podcast with the consistency that you do. Anyways, as an endlessly hopeful but skeptical member of Raider Nation, could you go in a bit more on or drop the video about Jimmy Garoppolo? People argue that him and Josh McDaniels could recapture something, but I just feel like there's no magic there. As a former quarterback and a knowledgeable dude, could you tell us why nobody wanted to sign Jimmy Garoppolo? Thanks, man. Welcome back, Aaron. I apologize. I'm not going to give you a film analysis or deep breakdown. I might if I'm really feeling it, put a video on screen that shows how great Jimmy Garoppolo is if you're watching on YouTube. I should. That would be funny. There's a video on my computer literally titled Why No One Wants Jimmy G. So let's write that down and get that on the video. Jimmy Garoppolo is not awful. He's just got a low ceiling. There's just not a lot of potential there. He's not ever going to be a top 5 or even top 10 quarterback. He's fine. And he gets injured often. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo got elevated by a great team around him in San Francisco. That is why he succeeded and went to a couple of Super Bowls. He executed and was elevated. He gets hurt all the time. I'm not convinced he's going to make it through this year without getting hurt. He's got a low ceiling, so I'm not excited about Jimmy Garoppolo. Is he the savior of the Raiders? I doubt it. I hope I'm wrong. How cool would it be if Jimmy Garoppolo went to the Raiders and was amazing? I love that idea, but I don't think it's going to happen, right? I can hope for something and then also still be realistic that it's probably not going to happen. And I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is the solution to all the problems in Vegas, but we'll see. But the reason why no one wants him, he's not very capable. He's got a low ceiling, and he gets injured all the time. Stephen G writes in. Stephen G says, "Hello, Zach's Faceballs." My Faceballs. Okay. Glad to see the return of SOS, and I hope you're doing great. So my question is, how likely do you think a Trevor Lawrence MVP campaign is this year? He turned a corner late last year and became a top 10 quarterback statistically, and now he gets a whole offseason to study Doug Peterson's offense, and Calvin Ridley's coming back from suspension. I'm not a betting man, but I would go all in on Trevor Lawrence finishing at least top 5 in MVP voting this year. He continues, also, as someone who's been on record saying fantasy football is my religion, I was wondered if you were still planning on doing the SOS Fantasy League this year. I am still very excited to play against you and some other listeners, and can even give you a pointer or two about how to run one as a commissioner myself. I apologize if this question has already been answered. Looking forward to it. Keep it up, dude. Steven, I haven't sent you an email yet, but you are on my list, and you are one of the people. I'm doing a 16-man league. I was going to do less, but I realized the way it works out for playoffs and the way it everything. The 16 is bigger and more, and I like that. I think it's more challenging to have more teams and a sparse amount of good players. I like that. You have to be more thoughtful with how you build your team if there's 16 teams versus like 8 or 10. Steven, look for an email this weekend. I'm going to send you one. You better be ready. You're not gonna miss out. There's no hurry here, but I look for an email soon. Now, is there a chance Trevor Lawrence wins the NFL MVP? I think so. I mean, people like a new story. I think people are getting tired of the same old. The same person winning MVP every year. People get worn out by that. People like the new kid on the block. Oh my gosh, this guy came out of nowhere. He's amazing. If Trevor Lawrence has a great year, that's what's going to happen. People are going to go, wow, he's suddenly amazing. The Jaguars are so good. What happened? Trevor Lawrence. I could see him winning an MVP for sure. And he's got an advantage too. He's the best team. He's on a good team and a bad division. Houston's bad. Titans have a bunch of questions. The Colts are bad. Part of why Tom Brady was so good in New England early on is he was playing 6 games a year against bad football teams. The Jets could never get it together. The Dolphins were horrible. The Bills were horrible for a long time. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be greatly helped by the fact that his division is full of really bad football teams. And I think there's an absolute chance that Trevor Lawrence wins the NFL MVP this fall. Justin writes in, it's a really long one. Justin says, oh my effing G. I'm not going to say it, but he says, God, I'm too old to use that phrase, I think. I'm not too old. I'm just not going to say it out loud. So glad you're back. I live in Japan. You do? Justin, what's up? I would love to come visit you. I live in Japan, and since I've been here, I've gotten into watching some sports that I wasn't really interested in when I was back in the States. Sports like sumo and rugby. I know that you enjoy Formula One and football, obviously. But are there any sports that you see out there and think, hey, that might be fun to catch a few games? You don't need to read this part, just wanted to share this with you. I wasn't really interested in baseball in America. I caught a few games here and there, but I didn't really care. Since I've been in Japan, I started going to games, and the atmosphere and environment is just amazing. Watching games here and the culture around it got me to start watching MLB games again. If you get the chance to try to watch some sports in another country, it's really interesting. I recommend it. On that note, there is a professional American football league in Japan called the XFL. Honestly, not great quality, but you can get into a game for like $5, and the championship is in Tokyo, the Tokyo Dome every December, and it sells out like 30,000 people. It's a great time every year. Sorry to write so much. Stay awesome. I'm upping my subscription to lend a hand. You are. Thank you so much, Justin. I appreciate your support. So what's the sport that I feel like I've been neglecting and not watching a lot of and want to try to do more? It's actually baseball. I I want to say on record, I really, really am impressed with the MLB. The MLB made a lot of rule changes this offseason, and the product so far this year in the regular season has been really, really good. And I want to reward that. And so I think while I'm working throughout the day in my office and I'm writing and preparing and editing, I got 2 monitors here. A monitor that's normally in front of me that I move when I record, and then a monitor off to the side. I think my second monitor off to the side should have a baseball game, probably on 24/7. Like, I don't know why I can't have an MLB game always in the background. It's great background noise. I can occasionally, there's a home run. I'll check in and out, and a really good at bat might suck me in. I mean, it's a sports version of daytime TV. And I want to support the MLB. The MLB is trying to bring people like me back to pay attention. And I really want to support that because I love the changes they made, and it's making games shorter. There's more scoring. It's better at bats. There is more steals happening. I really, really like what baseball is doing, and I want to support them. So that's a change I want to make soon. Griffin writes in. Griffin says, F1 question for you here. Nick DeVries just got the boot from AlphaTauri. They're putting an old driver and Daniel Ricciardo in the car, which is a first for AlphaTauri. They've always had young drivers to feed the Red Bull team. I think Sergio Perez should be worried. My question is, do you agree with me that Daniel Ricciardo is likely on his way back to Red Bull? Yeah, AlphaTauri is a Red Bull-owned team. They locked down Daniel Ricciardo with the seat they had open to try to bring him back in. And they're like, we're going to lock him down now so Mercedes, Ferrari, no one else can take him. And eventually they're going to use him to replace Sergio Perez. It's weird, though. Perez is number 2 in the standings. Like, he's done a good job this year. Red Bull's dominating. I don't know why they would want him out. I haven't been following that close this year. I've been in and out. It's been not that interesting because Max is dominating. But yeah, at some point soon, I expect Daniel Ricciardo to be back in a Red Bull car. And I think it's fascinating. Now, what I really would like to see is actually Red Bull replace Sergio Perez with Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris, somebody who's really good. I want to see someone really, really talented drive the other Red Bull car who can actually challenge Max Verstappen. Like, watching Max against Charles Leclerc in an equal car would be incredible. Watching Max against Lando in an equal car would be so much fun. Whether it's Lando or Charles Leclerc or Daniel Ricciardo, I want to see somebody challenge Max Verstappen speed-wise and really be able to compete with him, because clearly none of the other teams can do it in their other cars. So that's what I'm rooting for in Formula One. There's 2 more questions. One's a question, one's a comment. Carter says, F1 thoughts. That's it. That's his whole write-in. Look, Max has got 255 points by himself. Mercedes, who's second in the standings, has 203. Max by himself is winning the Constructors' Cup. So it's just been like totally non-competitive in Formula One at the top spot. Max is dominating. And the earlier half of my year was weird. I was half watching, but I was working in HVAC. I was on a road trip. Now I'm finally settled and working again. The battle for second in Formula One has been really good and interesting, but Red Bull literally is double what Mercedes has. Red Bull has 411 points and Mercedes has 203. It's not competitive or interesting. A couple notes. So Ferrari's 4th behind Aston Martin. I find that funny. Ferrari is, they're so underwhelming. They're the Dallas Cowboys. They're super bad. I love watching Ferrari fail because it's entertaining and funny, but it's got to be frustrating if you're a Ferrari fan watching how inconsistent and bad the Ferrari F1 team is. Interesting, though. So in the F1 driver standings, Max Verstappen's number 1. Sergio Perez is number 2. Who's number 3? It's not Lewis Hamilton. It's his old rival, Fernando Alonso, which is like, what? That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Fernando Alonso, 3rd in Formula One. That's really, really cool. He's 41 years old, beating Lewis. Oh man, I love to see that. That's really interesting to me. I love that. I want to read one more final write-in today as we end the show. It's a story from Rita. Rita says this. Hey, I just wanted to share a quick story with you. I've been living in Barcelona since 2016, and a couple of years ago, you interviewed a coach from the Barcelona Dragons on Strong Opinion Sports. This allowed me to find out that the Dragons had essentially been reborn. I started watching their games, and this year I got the season ticket. I became a season ticket holder to go to all of their home games. I'm starting to meet other fans of the team, and after the games, I make sure to go high-five as many of the players as I can. It feels amazing to be surrounded by so many people who share the same passion for American football here in Barcelona and cheer on the Dragons. I even picked out a couple Catalan words on the way. Haha. Not sure if or when I would have discovered this team without Strong Opinion Sports. For that, I truly want to say thank you. And if life ever brings you to Barcelona, your beverage of choice is on me. Thank you, Rita. My dad wants to go to Barcelona really bad, actually. So if I am, I'll hit you up. That'd be fun. I remember Marcel came on. My friend Marcel Frazier, a guy who played at Missouri. He used Missouri, playing in the SEC, went to the NFL a little bit. He used Missouri to not only get his degree, his undergraduate degree, he got his master's degree. Now he's killing it in the professional world. He once coached in Barcelona. I love that guy. And it's so cool that interview is how you found the Barcelona Dragons, Rita. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I love that. I'm going to go. How long have we been going for? Ooh, well over an hour. Guys, I'm going to take off. I love you so much. Have a great weekend. I'm going to watch Quarterback this weekend on Netflix. I'll let you know how it goes. And have a great weekend. Ba-dum-bum. Bam. We are done.